All right. All right, good evening. This is Tom Lee, the chairman. Welcome to the Town of Alton Zoning Board of Adjustment public hearing. I'm going to read through a couple, a preamble and then a COVID notice, and then we'll move forward with the meeting, so please bear with me. As chair of the Alton Zoning Board of Adjustment, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis, in accordance with Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically, and these reasons shall be reflected in the minutes. The Town of Alton has moved from in-person meetings to remote audio participation meetings until further notice. Therefore, there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. We strongly encourage everyone attend our meetings remotely. Should you have a need to attend in person, we will make a remote location available upon a reservation request by you to this office no later than 2 business days in advance of the meeting date. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm the following, and I'll go through these subsections rather quickly. A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone. Members of the public wishing to attend this meeting electronically may call the conference call number from home. Follow the instructions listed under news and announcements on the town's website, www.alton.nh.gov. B, providing additional public access by video or electronic means. We are utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting, and the public has access to listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through the link that is listed under news and announcements on the town's website. C, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to abutters and the public of how to access the meeting via telephone conference and by using Zoom. D, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting that a member of the public wishes to speak or be recognized during public input at a public hearing. If you are calling in by conference call, press the star sign and then 9. This will raise your hand to request to speak to the board. If you're using a computer, use the raise hand button to request to speak to the board. Several members of the public may be conferenced in, and requests to speak will be handled sequentially one at a time. The Zoom moderator will allow you to speak when the board opens public input. E, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem accessing the meeting, please call 603-507-1002. F, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting remotely or there are difficulties with the town's equipment, the meeting will be adjourned, rescheduled to Thursday, July 1st, 2021, starting at 6 p.m. at the Alton Town Hall. You may call the planning department at 603-875-2162 between 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday for more information and for the dial-in code and meeting ID for each zoning board meeting. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, also please state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Hello, Mike. Next COVID notification I'll read through, and then we'll get into the meeting. Until further notice, to keep the public, our members, and our staff safe and to comply with RSA 91-A, the COVID-19 state of emergency, and the governor's orders on restrictions on public gatherings, the town of Alton has moved from in-person meetings to remote audio participation meetings, therefore providing each meeting to the public via a live audio conference. Please refer to news and announcements on the town's website, www.alton.nh.gov, to either locate the call-in number, webinar ID, and password to listen in via audio only, or to locate the link to connect via Zoom and register for a live video stream of the meeting in progress. You may also contact the office at plansec@alton.nh.gov or by telephone at 603-875-2162 between 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday for the call-in number and Zoom link for each meeting. We strongly encourage everyone to attend our meetings remotely. Should you need to attend in person, we will make a remote location available upon a reservation request by you to this office no later than 2 business days in advance of the meeting date. So with that being said, we'll now formally get into our meeting. We'll actually go through a call to order here. Again, this is the Zoning Board of Adjustment public hearing, Thursday, June 3rd, 2021. It's approximately 6:08 p.m. We're here in the Alton Town Hall. We'll go through and introduce the members. Myself, Tom Lee, Chairman. To my left.
Paul Manzioni, I'm present in the room with everyone else, member.
John Dever, Code Official, Zoning Representative, Staff Representative.
Paul LaRochelle, member and Selectman Representative.
Frank Rich, member. And it looks like we also have Mike. Can you hear us? You're online.
Mike Hepworth, alternate member.
Okay, at this point, we do have one member who is absent tonight. Tim Morgan, should we have a motion to make an alternate a member tonight?
Mr. Chairman, this is Paul Manzioni, I would like to make a motion that the board appoint alternate member Mike Hepworth to serve as a full member for this evening's meeting.
I'd like to. Go ahead.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Frank Rich, aye. Tom Lee, aye.
Paul Manzioni, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Okay, welcome, Mike.
All right, thank you.
You're officially a member for tonight's meeting. Moving on with here, appointment of alternates. We have no other alternates to be appointed here tonight. We did make Mike a member for tonight, so I will then go forward to the statement of the appeal process. The purpose of this hearing is to allow anyone concerned with an appeal to the Zoning Board of Adjustment to present evidence for or against the appeal. This evidence may be in the form of an opinion rather than an established fact. However, it should support the grounds which the board must consider when making a determination. The purpose of the hearing is not to gauge the sentiment of the public or to hear personal reasons why individuals are for or against an appeal, but all facts and opinions based on reasonable assumptions will be considered. In the case of an appeal for a variance, the board must determine facts bearing upon the 5 criteria as set forth in the state statutes. For a special exception, the board must ascertain whether each of the standards set forth in the zoning ordinance have been or will be met. All right, at this point, we'll look towards getting an approval of the agenda. John, has there been any changes to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chairman, there have not. I take that back. Under new business, we're going to discuss the changes in the meeting policies that are going to be taking place this month.
Okay, so under new business, we're going to be going over some new meeting policies. All right, can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as written and with the amendment for the new business.
I'll second that. All in favor? Tom Lee, aye.
Paul Manzioni, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Mike Hepworth, aye.
Okay, terrific. All right, today we'll get into our new applications. We'll see who is out there as far as the first case upon us, which is case Z21-13 and Z21-14. Mr. Heath, Ryan Heath, are you with us?
You're muted, Brian.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Excellent. All right. Is there anybody else out there? Please note themselves as far as for this case, Z21-13 and Z21-14. Okay. All right, as far as this, we'll get right into this application. Okay, Z21-13 and Z21-14, Ryan Heath, owner. This is in regards to Dan Kelly Drive and East Side Drive, map 35, lots 68 and 68-1. This is for a variance in the Lakeshore Residential Zone. The variance is requested from Article 300, Section 327 of the zoning ordinance to permit portions of a single-family home to be built within the setbacks. All right, with that, Ryan, I'll turn it over to you. Oh, sorry. I'd like,
We have to accept the application as complete.
we'll look through your application right now. I apologize for that, Ryan.
And in connection with that, issue, Mr. Chairman, I have a point of order or clarification, and that is that this is on our agenda as two cases. One, Z21-13 and Z21-14, which shows it to be two separate cases. Is that correct, John?
Correct.
All right, so therefore, I think in the first instance, we need to determine whether we're going to proceed as one at a time, both at the same time, and are there two applications or one application that will be applicable to both cases? And I think we should offer the applicant the opportunity to choose whether, which one we should review first, because we can't make a decision for both at one time. They have to be handled separately.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. So they're actually technical questions, okay? Because the applicant filled out two applications, okay? I noticed in the paperwork, and again, it's just a technical thing. I'm not sure if it's right or wrong. Should there have been two applications completed, okay? Number one. Number two, I also noticed that the application for one variant, in other words, the fees that were paid, okay, was for, it appears to be for both, but not separate. Okay, and I don't know if that's a technical issue. If you have two cases, do you have to file two fee schedules? I'm just asking because I don't want this to become an issue.
Right.
John, I can answer that. So we save the money in the abutters fees because we can put both letters in one envelope. But it is two separate cases because we have to notice for both of them in the newspaper. So it's two newspaper fees. But we save the money in the abutters fees and whenever we can.
Okay, but in the application, it doesn't show that the two fees were paid.
Word in the separate file.
So as a point of clarification, so where we have the fees listed, that would probably apply to the one case, and then there would be a sheet just like that applying to the second case in a separate file. But I know we have, on many occasions, used one application with the same narrative, and you know that, we all know that, right?
I know that, but I'm just, this is
Right.
more of a technical.
Yeah.
It has I have record of the fees being paid separate for them, but.
Right, we just don't have it in our folder, but you can
Yeah.
represent to us that it's been paid. Because I don't want this to be challenged by somebody down the road that there was something inappropriate, okay? Okay, so we have two application fees, one for each one, okay? And then I have another technical question, okay? And it may be that I'm just not reading it right, okay? But The applicant has given us two, one I'm assuming is existing and one I'm assuming is the proposed.
Now, one is a detail of the larger plan.
Right,
So one
so-
is your right hand.
Yep, so I see two detailed plans of the proposed,
Correct.
but I don't see an existing.
The existing is empty land.
It's just, so if it's empty land, we don't have to worry about it.
Really don't
Okay,
have to worry.
okay, that was a question because that was one of my questions was, if it's just land, then we don't have an existing building.
If there was existing structures or whatever, then we would.
Then we would have an existing, okay, but we don't have that because it's vacant land.
Two vacant lots.
Got it. Great. Whew.
To answer the question, I believe Mr. Monzioni posed, there are two separate cases. We have two separate lots that are owned commonly by Mr. Heath.
Right?
They're contiguous to each other. So that's so there's, and the requests, although there are common exhibits and common narratives and everything else, the requests are different for each lot. So.
Right, but for my purpose of getting through the first part of this, whether to accept the application as complete, I think Frank's point clarifies it, that they're on two separate fee sheets, but we've clarified that point, so we're fine on that. Because that would make the application complete when there's a fee sheet in it, and so we're told there's another one, so that's good. But, and then as I understand it, the applicant is using the same plans, the same narrative, all of the same submissions, materials, to support each case for two separate variances, but this application will apply to both. Is that your understanding?
The exhibits will.
Yes.
We do have two separate.
You have separate applications themselves, but the exhibits in terms of the plans, the narrative, et cetera, that'll all be applicable to both.
Correct.
And so it's two variances, two separate variances that are being sought, one for each case.
Correct.
And so, okay, so just on the issue of whether it's complete, I think at some point it would be good too to see how the applicant would prefer we address each variance, whether one affects the other or whatever. I mean, if there are two here, or just take them in the sequence in which they're filed. But I think that's a question we can pose to the applicant. But I would, in light of those clarifications, I would move at this time that we accept the application, the cases Z21-13 and Z21-14 as complete.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Frank Rich, aye.
Tom Lee, aye.
Paul Monzioni, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Mike Hepworth, aye.
All right, with that, Mr. Heath, we'll now move forward as far as approving the application. Do you have any questions before we get going? I'll have you give us an overview of what you're looking for these variances, but are there any questions in regards to what we just discussed with the two cases being brought forward here, and how would you like us to handle it?
Yes, thank you very much. So in regards to the two cases, the variance request greatly hinges on the placement, on the setback requirements as is, pushing the houses unreasonably close together. So that's why looking at them sort of together, because what it's doing is pushing the houses to the common boundary line between the properties, is one of the main issues that I'm seeking a variance on both parcels. As far as one proceeding over the other, they both sort of hinge on each other. I would say the top lot 68-1 is more of the priority as far as the variance is concerned. But like I said, they both closely relate to one another because it's a relationship to both homes, or proposals, I should say.
Okay.
Turn this volume down a little bit.
You're welcome.
you want to look at that for a minute, or did you want me to proceed with the overview?
Unless there's any questions from the board,
So, Mr. Heath, would you prefer us to do it one at a time and do the one that you're most concerned about first? Or would you prefer us to do it as a joint? What would be your preference?
My preference would be to do it as a joint so that we can discuss what factors affect both lots. Like I said, I think there's an issue or a problem that I'm bringing forward with the reason for the request for the variance, and it directly relates to that center line, so I'll be discussing both lots at the same time. So I have no problem if the board is comfortable with discussing them together.
I don't have any.
Chairman, no, I think it's appropriate to discuss them together, especially since they tie together. But just so the applicant is aware, and for our purposes, we have to vote on these two variances separately.
Right.
And there is a, it's scenario, and that's, I would think, how you'd want us to do it, because there's a situation where you might get one and not the other, so we wouldn't, if one were to fail, it may not necessarily cause the other to fail, is my point. So to discuss them jointly, I think, makes complete sense. And when you're done, we'll have all the information we need, but we'll then have to vote on them separately.
Sure, I understand completely.
okay. Any other questions? We good? Okay, go right ahead, Mr. Heath.
Thank you. So I currently own map 35 lots 68 and 68-1. These are both currently vacant lots. These are two lots, one respectively, 68 is 0.3 acres, 68-1 is 0.41. So these are both non-conforming lots that were created in 1961 as part of the Austin Curtis subdivision. These lots of record are both, as you can see by the plans attached, corner lots. The 68 borders Eastside Drive and Dan Kelly Drive, the paved portion, and 68-1 borders both Dan Kelly Drive, the paved portion, and Dan Kelly Drive, the private portion. So the unique issue to both of these lots is being corner lots on either end. There's a 25-foot setback imposed on both frontages, and not just one frontage on a traditional lot. And what is happening is once we started plotting the septic designs and the site designs with the homes, is by being forced to comply with the two 25-foot setbacks, they're both on opposing sides of the lots, and it pushes the structure to both setbacks on the center line. So if you look at the survey that has the proposed structures and the dotted setback lines, you see is that if we pulled both homes within those setback borders, it actually puts two corners of the home within roughly 22 feet apart. Not to mention, on that center line, I included the more detailed design for the septic plan to show you the elevation contours, because there's a drastic elevation change between those two at the midpoint that would only be able to be dealt with a severe retaining wall right at the base of both properties or both structures. So I'm here today seeking a variance on the in a variance with the setback requirements. Only portions of the house would need to be within the setback boundary lines. On the survey that was attached, you'll see the shaded areas define the portions of the homes on both lot 68 and 68-1 as to what would be within those setback, within that setback area. Fortunately, one of the things that sort of helps the situation as well is that you'll note that when we surveyed the land, these boundary lines were squared off. They do not follow the contour of the roadway. So even with the intent of a setback is to provide that berthing area for the right of way. But if you look at the property lines, and I had the surveyor indicate the distances to the actual roadway, because there's a great deal of room that is beyond the property line boundaries before you get to the paved section of the roadway, which allows for more than enough room to maintain the right of way, any sort of drainage, snow removal issues, anything like that that would come up. So by being granted, if I were to be granted the variance on the setbacks, what this does is it allows to move the houses further apart on the center line. And what that does is it creates a much more aesthetic look for the neighborhood. It's much more in line with the rural character, not to have homes that close. Not to mention, it makes it a lot safer. Having homes that close provides a great safety risk when you're talking about fire, the spread of fire, or any issues like that, because there's not a reasonable break between the two homes, and if something were to happen, it would greatly, most likely, imminently affect both structures and not just one, creating it more of a safety risk. So these this is the overview of the situation and why I'm requesting a variance to be able to separate these houses. I can better address the elevation change in the dirt work for runoff. We can separate the two structures appropriately for both rural aesthetics and also safety concerns with that. So that's why I'm here today. That's the overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions or comments or address anything. I did see, I don't know if I should address any concerns that were already raised at this time, or if you'd like me to wait until there's any letters or comments or concerns from department heads or.
Okay. Yeah.
Ryan, this is Paul LaRochelle. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you doing, sir?
Good. I just have a question on lot 68, the first house, where you show the 24 square feet encroachment and the 12 square feet encroachment to the property line next to it. What is the distance between lot 66 and the house itself where you're proposing to put it, as opposed to moving it back so you'd be away from Dan Kelly Drive?
What the concern is there is when you look at the more detailed septic design, there's a drastic elevation drop right after that goes down to the neighboring property. In the photographs that I had sent with the package, you see a red house that neighbors to the right of the property. And there's a banking that drops off there that goes right down to the slopes right down to the property line. So it's keeping us, that small distance is keeping us off of the break of that slope, because there's not a lot of room there to be able to deal with that appropriately with the neighbor's house. I mean, we can certainly do it, but it would not be favorable to the neighbor's situation at this point, because I would be within the setbacks and within the property line, but it would push this house unreasonably close to the neighbor's house that's already existing.
Okay.
Which neighbor were we talking about? The one in the back?
I was talking on lot 66, which is the one here. Lot 66.
That'd be lot 68, Paul.
I'm looking at
No, lot-
66. Right, I'm looking at lot 66, Paul.
Okay, so,
Oh.
Okay,
So I was wondering why it couldn't come, I didn't know the distance from where the proposed house was to the property line, and didn't know if it could be pulled back closer to lot 66, is what I was asking.
so how close is lot 66? Mr. Heath, how close is lot 66's house to the property line? Do you know?
It's, right now, currently, it's within, if you look on the detailed plan, Just below lot 68, you see a little dotted line for runoff, water runoff, just over the property line.
Yep.
It starts on my property and then goes over the property line. His house, his foundation literally borders that runoff. Because he's having issues, he's mentioned the issues of erosion and things of that nature by his foundation.
He borders yours 68 and 66's property line? He borders it?
No, the drainage swale. He borders the runoff swale.
Swale that comes back
Right.
here, and the neighbor's house is right on the edge of that drainage swale.
Okay.
So
So,
That's what I was.
okay, so the distance from the back of your proposed house on 68 and the distance of the house that's on 66 is what distance?
Existing house,
Approximately. I mean, I'm not gonna hold you.
we're talking, with the proposal of the, variance, that puts us at about roughly 70, 80 feet.
I'm sorry, again?
70 to 80 feet?
70 to 80 feet.
Yes.
Yeah, so. That's why I'm asking. 70 to 80 feet seems to be, especially these lots being so small, okay, that seems like an awful lot of area. And I'm just, I mean, the encroachment is so small in terms of you being more compliant to it.
That's why I asked that.
Right, of the foot, if you were to just move it back 2 feet, the home itself, am I wrong that you would be completely within your setbacks?
That would eliminate one variance.
It would be significantly more than 2 feet. Because I got two corners hanging out, so I have to get back far enough to suck both of them in. What it does is, it's the fact that the distance is deceptive, and I'm sorry that I am not explaining this better right now, but if you look at the photograph of the house sits down at the end of that thing. So even though we're talking about 60 or 70 feet, 25 to 30 of that is a straight down slope to the neighbor's house. So though by linear feet on the ground, we'll have more space, the house will be vertically above his house, directly looking at one another, if that makes a little more sense.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just scaled off roughly to that house. It's actually closer to 40 feet,
40 feet.
not 60. Yeah.
It's closer to 40 feet?
40 feet from the far corner takes you over that swale, that drainage swale that's shown on there.
And Mr. Heath is maintaining that the swale is rather pitched.
It is steep.
Yep, okay,
Here.
okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's something I was concerned with. If you could pull it back, it might eliminate that variance completely, but understanding that the slope is an issue.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So the Dan Kelly Drive private part, the proposed house on lot 68-1, even with the encroachment into the 25-foot right-of-way setback, you've indicated in the plan that one corner of the structure the closest it will be to the travel way of the right-of-way is 15.4 feet. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, that private way, is that the dirt, road part that you've described?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. My only concern would be, so that's privately owned, so that's a right of way. My only concern would be if down the road, use a bad pun, if in the future, that road were to expand in width. I think your description that 15.4 feet at the closest point to the travelway is more than sufficient space for snow plowing, drainage, et cetera, all of the things that the right-of-ways are designed to permit. I think you're absolutely right about that. My only concern is there some potential down the road that road would be widened in a way where that 15.4 feet would go away, but this is a private portion of the road, right?
Yes, it's private, it's a private portion of the road, but that stretch of land that you're talking about in between and around the properties is all part of and owned by the town as part of the right of way. Those are not parcels that are included in any lot of record, where somebody could basically take over that space unless it was the town that chose to do so. And then, but at that point, the town would have to take the road over too, and I don't think that would ever come up to town standards, that portion of the road.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Also, that section of Dan Kelly is a dead end.
That's a dead end, yeah. Right. No, that's good. I just wanted, I mean, it's a 25-foot right-of-way. He's going into it. How far into the 25 feet are you going at the farthest point of encroachment?
The furthest point, I'm into the 25 feet completely at just that corner of the house. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I see it now. This solid line represents the setback line, right?
No, the solid black line are the property lines, and then the dashed line, lighter one on the inside, are the setback lines. Yep.
So,
Paul, if you look at this one here, it's on the map where the red is.
yeah.
Those are your setbacks. That encroachment is significant.
No, but the dash lines are the travel way of the right of way, right?
Yes,
And
right.
then if you go to the left of the dash line, the solid black line is the setback line for the right of way, or no? That's a boundary line?
That's a boundary line.
Oh, okay.
That's a boundary line. It's the red that's
Oh, yeah,
the
the red is
setback.
the setback, okay.
It's the
For
red.
side and right of way setbacks.
Right.
Yeah. So
He's right on the boundary line.
he's on his boundary.
That corner is right on the boundary line.
The proposed corner.
So doesn't that require a variance for boundary line setback?
Well, that's what he's asking.
No, I know, but on this but he's also asking for a right-of-way variance.
No, it's the right-of-way setback that he's encroaching into.
But there's also a boundary line that's there. In other words, you need to be 25 feet off of the right-of-way line. So you're saying the boundary line and the right-of-way line are the same?
In this case, yes.
In this case?
So
Because if they weren't, that would arguably be saying he'd need a variance to be 10 feet. He's going 10 feet into the boundary line, and he's going more than 25 feet away from the right-of-way, but you're saying the right-of-way line and the boundary line are the same?
Yes.
Okay, so we only need, if he gets a variance for the right-of-way setback, that covers the boundary line setback, because once he's got that, he's good where he is.
Yeah, for the purposes of this, we start at the boundary line because it's all right away and it's all that common ownership
Right.
of the homeowners or whoever.
Okay.
So for purposes, we actually start that setback from the boundary line itself,
Right.
the established boundary line.
And that's, okay. And
Because
that
it
whole,
borders the right of way.
Right, it borders it, okay. And that whole shaded area, as he's done on the other, on lot 68, the shaded areas indicate the portion of the proposed structure that will encroach.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Ryan, just to know, going back to the slope, and going back to the lot, back to, the first lot, 68. That's not the original state of the lot. Was that built up?
I'm sorry.
Once the lot was cleared, was that lot built up, with fill?
No. No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was not built up at all. It was actually cut down significantly.
Okay. That was the original, basically, it was cut down from what it was originally on the corner of 28 and the beginning of Dan Kelly Drive. That was actually lowered from where it was?
Yes, on lot 68 was lowered significantly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there was at least a 3-foot cut.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, the letter from Jim Rashila, have you seen that, Ryan?
Yes, I have. And
So he says no objection as long as the gravel portion of Dan Kelly Drive is not encroached upon or taken with a property line adjustment. And there is no objection as that portion of Dan Kelly Drive remains its current width, and he says it's been traveled on since 1976. So to address those concerns, none of what you're seeking to do would be either one of these things that he's concerned about.
no, absolutely not. There will be no change or alteration to any portion of Dan Kelly.
This is another, Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir. I do not understand this letter, okay, from the abutter.
Okay.
Okay? Can you explain to me what the second to last paragraph says? Because I couldn't understand it.
Yeah,
But if any of those two conditions exist.
right, so what he's saying is that if he was proposing any of these two things, then he would ask it to be continued so that they could be present to voice their concerns. So if he was asking to, number one, encroach into the travel portion of the road,
Right.
or take part of it as a boundary line adjustment, then if that was going to be proposed, then they asked that the meeting be continued.
Right.
But neither of those things are being proposed.
He just said, that's why I asked him, he just said he's not going to.
I just wasn't.
No, right.
I couldn't understand what he was.
I know.
I just wanted to get it clarified.
Yeah. Right.
Either one of those conditions were not met. Okay.
And they wanted to come and object, but.
Right.
Right.
But we have assurance from the applicant that neither of those things is going to happen, so that concern's been addressed.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Heath, could you elaborate on the concern from the Public Works Director? Okay, I'm sure you've seen that.
Absolutely.
I think he's concerned about the snow at the intersection, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. I did speak with the Public Works Director. He was pointing out the fact that DOT has current setback regulations on driveways by intersections, which this town of Alton doesn't have, because it doesn't really, a lot of times it can't apply with a lot of these non-conforming lots. 100, so their restrictions or DOT's is what he's referring to as 100 feet from an intersection, and some of these lots don't even have 100-foot boundary lines. So the concern was mentioned that the only thing would be snow removal. And his concern was that the driveway location might might get some of the push off from the trucks as they round the corner. But to alleviate that, that's why I definitely indicated on the survey, when you look at the line from the corner of the house to where the paved portion is at that corner, there's over 25, 30 feet before you even get to my property line of open space there on that corner. That is before and after the driveway location, which would be plenty of area for snow removal and to push off and get off the paved portion. Currently, the way that they plow, and the public works director was concerned because when he talked to the plow driver, currently they have been utilizing that piece of property to push snow as they round the corner, and they can still continue to do so. It's just going to take a little bit more conscious effort to not to block the end of their driveway or the driveway. But really, unfortunately, the big issue is regardless of whether the variance is granted or not, the driveway, I already submitted driveway permits and those were already approved locations, and the town doesn't have an ordinance or any regulations on driveway locations. So even if the variance, like I said, even if I pull the houses back, the driveway locations are going to be within feet of one another as they currently stand or are plotted anyways at this point. I don't really have a lot of options with the driveways.
I don't see that the shaded area of encroachment on lot 68-1 is that structure being in that thing. I don't see how that would impact the issue that the Public Works has with regard to pushing that snow. But I'm just saying, for our purposes,
there's a lot of
I'm not sure that factors into our equation,
There's a lot of frontage there, as Mr. Heath has said. There's a ton of frontage there. I mean, it could affect the driveway.
The driveway
itself at some point, but is that our issue? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay.
As long as Dan Kelly
Right.
is
Mr. Chairman, I have a...
Yep, go right ahead.
Mr. Heath.
Sure.
If you were to take that whole proposed house on 68-1 and move it back 2 feet, what does it do? I know topographically, okay, it's starting to go down because there seems to be a drainage ditch or a drainage pipe there, just pretty close to the end of the house. But if you were to pull it back 2 feet or move it to the, as you're looking down, move it to the left 2 feet, from your property line, what effect does that have to the, to you, if you were to do something like that?
What that does is I can't just move the house right now because it's pinned within the state's requirements for setbacks on leach field and tank distances. If you look on that house, and particularly on that, the leach field and the tank are in the front of the house there. And this location was plotted specifically because it works in coordination with the system, a gravity system below the house right there. When we played with different site designs and moving the house around, what that does is throw the leach field right up where the snow removal would be, up in that area of the property. And the house actually, in order to keep those setback requirements for the state, goes even lower. I can't do that minor adjustment because it ends up flipping everything back around, and I have to push the house all the way to that center boundary line. Because if you're when you're looking at that plan, you're talking about that shaded area. If you took that corner of the house, the far corner that has the 15.4 foot measurement on it, and you take that and push it all the way down to the corner of where those two 25-foot setbacks run, it literally brings the rest of the house to the 10-foot, almost to the 10-foot setback line, side setback on the middle. and the bottom house is on that 10-foot line as well. So that's where we get basically the 22 feet of separation. Because it's a chain, to answer your question a little more directly, it's a chain reaction. When we move the house, it starts affecting all of the setbacks on the rest of the site plan.
Oh, that septic system, couldn't you move that septic system down further? I mean, how does that affect?
I think what the problem with that is, because if you look at the radius for the wells,
Oh, the radius
you got
of
the
the well.
75-foot radius
Oh, yeah.
for the wells.
Yeah.
If you look at that, he's just
Yeah,
bare minimum
yeah.
on one of the radiuses for
Oh, yeah.
lots
Oh, I see
68.
it. I see the other
Right.
radius there.
So
Yeah.
those are concerns.
Yeah, no, I got it. Thank you. Okay,
Also, are you talking about the leach field for 68?
yeah, Right.
68-1, I'm sorry.
68-1.
Yeah,
68-1.
and also the other thing is having to build the slope to the proper angle that the DES requires.
right.
They don't want that slope encroaching on the neighbor's property.
Oh, yeah,
When you start pushing that tail, you're pushing the tail of that slope,
yeah.
and they don't want that encroaching.
Sure, because then it's going to the neighbor's property.
Yeah, you're
Right,
You could do it.
right,
Yeah, you can ask.
right. I got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, before.
That's good for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Heath. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Totally official is to deliberate and vote.
Okay, these lots are tough.
Yeah, it's tight.
Right. Yeah.
They're very, very tight.
Okay. Yeah, it's, Mr. Heath, it's Tom Lee. It's very helpful with the detailed map because looking at that one plan,
Right, right.
in layman's terms, it would be, geez, why can't you move this property around? Why can't you adjust a little bit here? To Paul's point, originally, you'd negate one variance completely, et cetera, et cetera. And then once you look at this detailed plan with a better understanding, you're really pinned in where you have these set. It makes sense, is what I'm trying to say. So
Right.
I appreciate the detail.
Right.
It answers a lot of
No,
questions.
It answers a lot, and thank you for sharing the information.
Very helpful.
Absolutely.
Could I just ask for clarification? So the fact that there's a house that exists on lot 68 really means nothing to us, because this is not
66.
I mean, 660.
No, 68.
There's no house on 68.
And there's no house on 68-1 either, right?
Right.
No.
They're
All
both
empty lots.
both
Oh,
back.
they're both empty lots.
So 66 is the only one.
Yeah, I know, that's close, yeah.
Those
I
are-
thought the photograph, so I thought this was a non-conforming structure that would be raised and then a new one.
No,
This
they're
is-
both
So
vacant
they're
lots.
both vacant.
Vacant lots.
Yeah.
Had you been listening in the
No, I've
earlier?
been listening, but it doesn't mean I haven't been
Okay,
confused.
you know, I
can
asked
listen.
that question, if they were vacant lots, if
Well,
you
I
had
thought-
been listening,
I
thought-
Mr.
It's a
Monzio.
very valid point. One can listen but still be confused.
That's true.
Yeah.
John, you're guilty as charged? Okay.
Mike, you still with us?
I am, I'm here.
You have any questions, Michael?
Well,
No, this
I would
this
like
is
to-
one of the more confusing ones, but I'm following along.
Okay, one, before we get to that, Mike, Paul Monzioni brought up the point in regards to Mike being sworn in for tonight's meeting, which you have not been sworn in for this meeting tonight,
Not
correct?
just for the meeting, no.
He has been sworn in
Yes,
officially.
yes, he's officially been sworn in.
Yeah.
I knew he was officially sworn in, but yeah.
You, like they did with Lisa downstairs, like you guys did. She officially finishes this one. Right, Sean? Is that how it works?
What? No.
That Mike had to go through Lisa to get sworn in the clerk's office after they sign the paper?
Generally, but
How did he get?
More in right here.
Yeah, and we signed, we all signed.
We all
And
signed?
that's it.
Okay, just double check.
Yeah.
No,
No,
fine.
he's good.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Mike, not to interrupt you, go ahead, you had a point you want to make?
Oh, no, I was just following along.
Okay. All right, any other further discussion from the board, questions?
No, I think I've asked my questions.
I have to.
Okay. And Mr. Heath, do you have any further discussion or questions for the board?
No, I do not.
Okay. At this point, I will then open the hearing to any public input in favor of the variance for case number Z21-13. And I think it's best we handle these separately. So once again, I'll ask for any public input. If there's anybody on board here online that's in favor of this variance for case number Z21-13. Do we show anybody, Amelia? No. Okay, nobody for public input in favor. I will ask, is there any public input against the variance for Z21-13? And that's a no as well. Okay, at this point, I'll close the hearing to any public input. No other questions from Mr. Heath or the board?
Could I just clarify something else here? So, okay, lot 68, to allow construction of a new home that will encroach into the 25-foot setback and the 10-foot side property line setbacks on 68.
Yes, right.
Okay. So in other words, one corner of the proposed house on 68 encroaches into the 25-foot right-of-way off of Dan Kelly Drive on the Class 4 paved portion.
By 24 square feet.
By 24 square feet. But it's okay on the side setbacks. And then the other side of the proposed structure encroaches 12 square feet into the side setback. Okay, good, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? Okay. We'll then we'll move to the worksheet and we'll handle Z21-13 first, and then we'll give opportunity for public input on Z21-14 once we're through this worksheet. So going into the worksheet for Z21-13, Paul, could you start us off?
Yes. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest. I say that for two reasons. One is we're talking about a total encroachment of 24 square feet into the right-of-way. The structure still remains so far off of the right-of-way. And the same is true with the sideline setback of only a 12 square foot encroachment. These are very small portions of the proposed structure. And the reason for the zoning regulation is not really designed to prohibit such a small encroachment under these circumstances. And to strictly enforce this against the applicant would result in a really an undue hardship for the applicant, particularly given the configuration and so forth of the lot.
For the same reason.
I agree and concur, and along with the fact that in the Dan Kelly Drive, Class 5 public road, even though there's a small encroachment, it's 38 feet and 43.9 feet from the road itself. So there's plenty of room, so I agree.
So just for roll call purposes for this meeting, so we have an agreement from Paul LaRochelle, agreement Frank Rich,
Yes.
I agree Tom Lee, and Mike?
Yeah, for the reasons stated, I agree.
Okay. All right, Mike, I don't know if you have a worksheet in front of you. I can
I
read
do
through
not.
the
So
spirit.
I don't have it committed to memory either, so I apologize.
That's fine. I'll read through the spirit of the ordinance for you, and then you can make your determination.
Okay.
The spirit of the ordinance. The request is or is not in harmony with the spirit of the zoning ordinance, the intent of the master plan, and with the convenience, health, safety, and character of the district within which it is proposed. So the question is this request is or not in harmony with the spirit of the zoning ordinance and the intent of the master plan?
Yes, I believe it's fully in the spirit of the ordinance.
I agree. Paul LaRochelle?
Frank Rich and I not only agree, but the applicant has taken gone to enormous offense to keep it healthy and safety in the character of the district, in trying to keep the houses actually away from each other and in the design of the community.
I agree, Tom Lee.
I agree, Paul Manzioni.
I agree, Mike Hepworth.
By granting the variance, substantial justice will be done. The two homes will be further apart, spreading them out further apart, making it easier to maintain, more fit the neighborhood, and actually look better aesthetically with the surrounding homes.
For those same reasons, I agree. Frank Rich.
I agree, Tom Lee.
Paul Manzioni, I agree. As I said previously, the purpose of these zoning regs for these particular setbacks is not to prohibit or restrict these minor encroachments, particularly given the positive impact that the location of the structure will have on this lot.
Mike Hepworth, I agree.
The request will not diminish the value of the surrounding properties. When these are built, I believe that they will actually enhance the value of the properties, the surrounding properties, especially with the care and attention that the applicant has proposed.
I agree, Tom Lee.
Paul Manzioni, I agree. We've had no evidence from abutters or otherwise that any of this will cause any diminution in value of surrounding properties.
Mike Hepworth, for the
Mike.
reasons stated, I agree.
I agree as well, Paul LaRochelle. I think it's only going to improve the value of the neighborhood.
Okay, in terms of hardship, for purpose of this subparagraph, unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, one, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of this ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. Yes. And two, the proposed use is a reasonable one. I believe it is, yes. Tom Lee.
Paul Manzioni, I agree for all of the reasons that no fair and substantial relationship exists, and the proposed use is a reasonable one. I agree there. The proposed use is for residential use in this residential neighborhood.
Mike Hepworth, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree for the same reasons stated.
Frank Rich, I agree with this for the same reasons.
Okay, is there any further discussion from the board at that point? Okay, could we have a motion to approve the variance for Z21-13?
I would make a motion that we grant the application for variance for case Z21-13.
Second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Paul Manzioni, aye.
Mike Hepworth, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Tom Lee, aye. Okay, Mr. Heath, we will then Z21-13 has been approved. We'll then move on to Z21-14. This application, from when we first discussed, was approved. We'll go into, as far as any discussion, anything further you'd like to say in regards to Z21-14, Mr. Heath?
No, sir, I think everything's been covered up to this point, but I'd be happy to answer any further questions that may have come up.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions from the board in regards to Z21-14? No? Okay. At this point, I'll open it up to open hearing to public input. Anybody in favor? Anyone in favor of Z21-14? Okay, Amelia says nobody online. How about open the hearing to any public input against Z21-14? Okay, there is none. At this point, we'll close the hearing to any public input. With no further discussion or questions from the board or the parties involved, we'll then move to the worksheet for Z21-14.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak for 1 second in terms of discussion? Normally I would be reluctant if this, other than the fact that the applicant has made such a commanding response to why he needed to do the things that he needed to do in terms of these two lots. These are two really tough lots, small, and he's done the best that he can based on the fact that, but to have this kind of an encroachment, okay, to the lot lines would be something that I know the board would normally take a very, very hard look at, but the applicant has made a stunning case on why. And I commend the applicant for taking the time and the patience that it must have taken to go through a number of designs, okay, to find a way to make it all work. So having said that, I just wanted to bring that up, that I think this was well planned out, and he's done the best. The applicant has done the best that he can based on what he has, you know.
Yep. Nope, duly noted. I think back to the original point too was looking at just one plan that's not detailed, we could see this case not having any chance based on the encroachment, but with the detail and all the work that's gone into it. And it doesn't get mentioned often, but I know John Dever has put a lot of hard work into all these cases, and so the team effort here is well noted. So.
Do we actually have to give him any credit? Okay. Okay. I suppose that's okay, Mr. Chairman. Okay, thank you.
Any other further discussion?
No, I mean, I would just add that it is at first glance a lot of encroachment. It's mainly right-of-way encroachment, which also happens to be the boundary line establishing that setback, but it's a private way on a dead-end street. And you've got septic issues, well issues, you've got tank issues, and you've got slope issues. And then you've got to do it all in a way that keeps both lots functioning and within the character of the community. So a lot of challenges here, and I think that's the reason that variances exist, to address these very issues. And any strict application of the zoning rate in this situation to this lot, I think would result in a substantial hardship to the owner of the lot who's meeting all these challenges. So that's exactly what the criteria are designed to do. And I think the application shows it. Yeah.
It was well planned out.
Yeah.
It was well planned out, a lot of work in order to make the lots fit, the homes fit in these two lots with the septic systems configured where they had to be in order to meet the state standards. And for the wells, And again, like you said, mentioned, the slopes, I think, this is well planned, and it reflects on, how we look at it and understand it. So thank you.
And, John, I'm sure you had a lot of input. Thank you.
Okay, we will now move to the worksheet for Z21-14. Mike, I will have you start us off, and I'll read it to you. It's the first criteria. It's public interest. The variance will or will not be contrary to the public interest.
The variance will be in the public interest, yes.
Okay, so the question is, the variance will or will not be contrary to the public interest?
Oh, I apologize.
So-
It will not be contrary to the public interest for the reasons that were stated.
It will not be.
Will not be, Mike? Will not be contrary.
Will not be contrary to the public interest.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry,
It's confusing when you don't have it in front of you.
Right, it is. And I agree, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest.
And I agree for all the reasons that we just had in discussion. Frank Rich.
I agree as well, Tom Lee.
And Paul Montioni, I agree for the reasons that we talked about in discussion.
Spirit of the ordinance. The request is in harmony with the spirit of the zoning ordinance, the intent of the master plan, and with the convenience, health, safety, and character of the district within which it is proposed. These homes will be built further apart from each other, further away from the property line on the abutter, on lot 66, and this will also make it easier for maintenance or repairs.
For all those same reasons, I agree. Frank Rich.
I agree, Tom Lee.
Paul Montioni, I agree, and I will say that when we have discussions before we get into the worksheets and voting, it gives us a chance to put the reasons out on the record, and it's always good that we have the reasons to support our decision. So I would just say I agree for the reasons that we previously stated.
Mike Hepworth, I agree.
By granting the variance, substantial justice will be done. I agree.
I agree, Tom Lee.
I agree, Paul Montioni.
Mike Hepworth, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree.
Okay, the criteria values of surrounding properties. The request will not diminish the value of the surrounding properties. It will certainly enhance the value of the surrounding properties. I think, you know, a key takeaway on this plan with all the other details we talked about was Mr. Heath really working toward, Mr. Heath working toward separate houses so they're not on top of each other, really adds to the unique way that neighborhood will now look instead of having one house within 11 feet of the other house. So I definitely don't think it's going to diminish the value of the surrounding properties.
Paul Montioni, I agree, it will not diminish the value. We've had no information or evidence from abutters or anyone else that this variance will cause a diminution in value of surrounding properties.
Mike Hepworth, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree as well.
Frank Rich, I agree.
Hardship. For purposes of this subparagraph, quote, unnecessary hardship, end quote, means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, one, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. And I would say yes, for the reasons that we've stated. The purpose of the ordinance for these setbacks, we understand, and that purpose is not in any way diminished by this variance given the totality of the circumstances. And also, two, the proposed use is a reasonable one, yes to that. because it's a residential use in a residential neighborhood.
Mike Hepworth, I agree.
Paul Rochelle, I agree as well.
Frank Rich, for all the reasons Mr. Manzioni said, I agree.
Formally, I agree. Okay, that ends the worksheet for Z 21-14. Could we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we grant variance for case Z 21-14.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Paul Manzioni, aye.
Mike Hepworth, aye.
Paul Rochelle, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Tom Lee, aye. All right, Mr. Heath, both cases, Z 2113, Z 2114, have been unanimously approved. Thank you, as we mentioned several times, for all your due diligence and the detailed plans and the work to put this forth. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the time you've allowed tonight and the care you've taken in reviewing these applications. Have a great evening, everybody.
Good luck.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now get into case number Z 21-15, and we'll see if the parties for Z 21-15 and Z 21-16, Robert and Janet Broughton, if I'm saying the last name correct, are they present?
Yes.
I can see you, Rob. Good evening.
You're muted, Rob. There.
Good evening.
Good evening. Are you just by yourself, Rob? I see that Janet was on this case as well, but to announce if there's anybody else for your side of the case.
No, I'm alone. She's not here.
Okay, that's fine. All right, well, welcome.
Thank you.
We're looking to take up two cases here. We'll start with Z 21-15, and we're just going to be looking towards approving your application in regards to a special acceptance.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point out, similar to the last case, the exhibits are common, both of these, because they both affect the same, these affect the same property. It's not separate properties.
I also noticed on this application, okay, with the fee, they were gathered together. One was the variance and one was for the special exception on this particular one. That's why I had the question on the last one. I was getting confused, which is not difficult today.
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
Your level of detail is very impressive.
So, this is a technical question, and I hate to, okay, but I noticed in the packet, there was a DES for a garage, and I'm assuming we're not discussing a garage on these particular exceptions. And actually, the DES, it was denied, or didn't go through. That was in the packets. Sure. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
Not aware of that.
Yeah, 24.
There was a 24-foot by 24-foot, Mr. Rod, that you applied for at some point, is a garage. Is that so?
That's part of the overall plan, yes.
Yeah, this is a request for more information.
Okay, it was a request for more, is that part of the plan?
There's a request for more information from the Wetland Bureau on the proposed parking that has impact on the wetland.
Okay, so you are moving forward for that with that 24 by 24
Yeah, yes,
garage, but you haven't gotten approval yet from
No.
from DES? No.
No,
Okay.
all of our applications are still in for review for shoreland, wetland, and septic.
Okay, so, maybe during the discussion period, we can talk about that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Okay, I noticed that, that was good. Okay, great. I think I find everything in order, Mr. Chairman, okay? So I would make a motion, okay, that we, approve the packet of Z 21-15 as complete.
I'll second.
Should we be, making a motion to approve Z 21, 15, and 16 at this point, like we did for the previous case? It's a similar, the application is the same.
Right, it's similar, the application similar exhibits, that would be up to the,
Then I'll amend mine to say that I would like to make a motion that Z 21-15 and Z 21-16 are complete for us to review.
And I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Paul Rochelle, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Tom Lee, aye. Mike, you still with us?
With you, I was waiting for, yeah, Mike Rich, aye. Mike Epworth, aye.
Mike Rich
somebody
Rich,
move it.
yeah.
and Paul.
Aye.
Okay, so it's unanimous, the application for case Z 21-15 and Z 21-16 has been approved. Mr. Broughton, I will, turn it over to you if you'd like to give us an overview of what you're proposing. We're gonna be going through the worksheets on each case separately here, so we'll be talking right now about Z 21-15. I understand that, what we're working on here is Robert and Janet Broughton, the owners, 20 Sandpeep Lane, map 41, lot 31, special exception in the Lakeshore Residential Zone. A special exception is requested from Article 300, Section 320J of the zoning ordinance to permit the replacement of a non-conforming structure that encroaches into the 50-foot shorefront and the 25-foot right-of-way setback. I'll turn it over to you, Rob, if you'd like to walk us through the proposal here for the special exception.
Certainly, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and board members. Yeah, I will walk you through the plan. I assume you have the plan in front of you. So what I'll do is I'll read the project purpose, and then I'll go from left to right, look at existing conditions and then proposed conditions. So the purpose is to remove a substandard non-conforming structure with more conforming secure house with state-approved septic system, to install a new septic system, moving the existing road as required, is required, with approval from road owners. Road realignment, restricted to upland only, a small 20 by 20 parking area with minimal wetland impact proposed due to limited parking on the small lot with significant wetland presence. All construction is intended to prevent ponding through the installation of a trench drain across the road to ensure drainage of a historically low area in the area between lots 31 and 32. Drip line trenches to be installed in all areas of roof runoff for infiltration dry wells. Going left to right, I will go over the existing conditions. The existing home is a 22 by 44 foot, 3-bedroom, 1-story home with an attached 12 by 50 foot deck and covered porch. The existing septic system is a 2,500 gallon Holden tank. The home was originally built in the 1940s. Notable items for this meeting are as you can see on the drawing, the existing deck and porch encroach into the 50-foot waterfront setback, delineated by the dark blue line, approximately 312 square feet. The existing house and porch encroaches into the side setback of the shared lot line of lots 32 and 31, approximately 24 square feet, which the setback is indicated by the light green line. The existing home encroaches approximately also 24 square feet into the private right-of-way setback area. The house is approximately 16 feet from the right-of-way at its closest point. And I've indicated the road setback with the black line and the label 25-foot road setback. So I'll pause there. That's existing conditions. Any questions on that before we move to proposed?
Rob, the added photos that were given to us at the start of the meeting, you know, as they say, pictures explain a lot, are helpful, are very helpful.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Every board member has it.
And that was John Devers' idea, so he can get credit for that too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move to proposed. So we're proposing to remove the existing home. It has a failing foundation and a substandard septic system, which is a holding tank, as I just mentioned. We're going to rebuild a 28 by 40 2-story modern home, install a clean solution septic system, and add a garage. By doing this, we'll remove the existing side lot encroachment, but we will slightly increase the square footage on the right-of-way setback by 24 square feet as well. The house will remain approximately 16 feet from the right-of-way at its closest point because of the road realignment we propose to do. We will maintain the existing footprint in the shoreline encroachment by not altering the deck and porch current footprint. To facilitate all this, the extra room needed for the house expansion and the septic, and also maintaining compliance with DES impervious surface and altered woodland regulations, we purchased an additional 1,500 square feet from the lot owners of lot 32 to increase the lot size. This also allows us to realign the road and move a utility pole approximately 5 feet. And there would be no wetland impact related to those activities. Overall, we'll keep the bedroom count at 3. We will not increase in the non-conformance aspect of the structure, and the replacement structure will not create any new non-conforming aspects. The new structure is being changed to the extent possible to reduce non-conforming by eliminating the side setback. And both existing and proposed will be serviced by a domestic water supply, which is a well. And the plan will include a New Hampshire DES approved septic system. So as I mentioned, I have right now all 3 of those permits submitted to DES, Water Division Shoreland Program, Wetland and Subsurface Systems Bureaus for wetland and septic approval. These are all under review right now. There was an RFI or request for more information on the wetland impact with that 20 by 20 parking space. So they asked for justification on why we need that. and more detail on potential impact to abutters. So we are drafting those responses as we speak, and we'll send those over. And as I also provided you with existing condition pictures and an image of what we envision we will build, as we don't have any architectural plans done yet. My approach was to get through all the permitting first, understand our building envelope, and then engage the architect for the drawings. But what I presented to you is the type of home that we're thinking of building. So that is my presentation. Any questions? I'm sure there are.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Yeah, we'll go to discussions or any questions. Go right ahead.
Yeah. Typically, Mr. Broughton, if we were to approve the special exception and the variance, we would approve it under the conditions that you get the New Hampshire DES approval. I just want to make you aware of that, okay? Typically, that's what we do, okay? If we approve it, if we don't approve it, it really doesn't, I think it would be a moot thing, but I just want you to be aware that there will probably be a condition if we were to approve your requests, okay? All right?
Understandable.
I just wanted to know. Okay? Okay? Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, all right.
Mr. Broughton, the proposal of the new structure is not going to change from the 25-foot setback from Sandpike Peak Lane? That encroachment still remains the same? Do I understand that correctly?
The right-of-way setback
Yes.
on the road, that will increase by 24 square feet approximately. This is based on my rule of measurements on the plan, but it will increase by 24 square feet.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the answer to your question is yes. The encroachment distance from the house to the edge of Sanpete will remain the same because they're relocating Sanpete.
They're moving Sanpete
away from the house.
Away from the house. So that distance stays the same. That's why.
Distance stays essentially the same, yes.
Thank you.
Who's moving the road?
The homeowners, they'll contract to have it moved over, but he has already gone to the other owners of the road.
And are they going to formally change the right-of-way? So in other words, all the
I don't know how the right of way is laid out. So I don't know if it's simply a right to pass, or if it's, I didn't see in the deeds where it says it is a set, located right of way.
Yeah, but if we have a right-of-way encroachment into a right-of-way setback, then we must be talking about a right-of-way that warrants a setback. So the right-of-way must be something of record that's established, and the house must be encroaching on the 25-foot setback of that right-of-way boundary. And now if we're being told the house is going to move up 16 feet into the setback of the right-of-way, but then the right-of-way is going to move 16 feet away, and in the end, it's going to be the same as it is now, then some formal process besides construction of the roadway has to take place in terms of altering the record that's recorded, whether it's deeds and or subdivision plans or whatever, that make that a new right-of-way so that he's not now 32 feet into a 25-foot right-of-way. You could put him in the travel way. So I'm just saying, I think the applicant has to, I mean, rather than get in the weeds on this, if we were to grant this, I think one of the conditions that would have to be imposed on the variance, special exception rather being granted, would be that the actual right-of-way gets legally changed such that when it's all over with, the structure still remains at only a 16-foot encroachment. Is it a 16-foot encroachment, or is it 16 feet from the boundary? So it's
16 feet from the edge of the road itself, the gravel-way is.
right. So that's a 9-foot encroachment.
Correct.
Okay. Now, he's supposed to be 25 feet off of the right-of-way boundary,
Right.
but he's 16 feet off of it, which means he's 9 feet into it,
Correct.
into the setback.
Correct.
And what
That's
the,
why it's gonna be moved.
right, but what the applicant is telling us is that when all is said and done, when his new structure is constructed, and the right-of-way has been changed, he'll remain 9 feet of encroachment.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And the deed simply states that a 10-foot right-of-way must be maintained. So, I don't know the legal terms, but so that the other, the abutters can, travel to get to their property and back and forth.
Right. Right, but I think for purposes of a zoning ordinance, the town would be concerned on a 25-foot setback that no structures go within that setback, because if it's going to be a right-of-way and a travel-way and so forth, all of the issues of safety, snow removal, drainage, et cetera, whatever they may be, are of concern to the town. So if there is a right-of-way there that requires a setback, that's why there's an encroachment, but that right-of-way is going to have to change. Your deeds, I'll say 10 feet for the benefit of the property owners and so forth, but for the town's purpose, if the town recognizes that as a right-of-way that requires a setback, then when all is said and done, that right-of-way is going to have to change. If you're going to move that structure even farther in that direction, then the right-of-way is going to have to move as well, so that you continue with a 9-foot encroachment.
Yep.
Thank you.
So that would be, what you're suggesting, Mr. Manzioni, is that would have to be part of the conditions.
I think it would be a condition, because it's a representation being made by
It's
the
a
applicant. Because we have to know what kind of encroachment we're creating or allowing or whatever when we're done here. And the only way we know that is the applicant's telling us the encroachment into the right-of-way isn't going to change. But we do know that moving the house even farther into the right-of-way, and the only way it doesn't change is if that right-of-way gets moved back the same amount.
Right. So it has to be moved.
And then I just have a question. 24 square feet of increased encroachment into that, how does that, what is that made up of? Is that like a corner of the structure or what? I'm not fully, I suppose I should see that better on the plan.
Yeah, so if you look at the plan, if you look at the black line that's labeled 25-foot road setback, if you look at the existing conditions, the structure's only 44 feet long, whereas that same setback with the road moved intersects with the entire structure of the primary house structure, which is 40 feet, and then 20 feet of garage. So it's just catching more of the proposed structure, thus increasing the area.
So if we look, for example, the proposed condition side of the plan, and you have a proposed house, and then you depict the 25-foot road setback in the bold black line. If we look at the proposed house, you're saying that's 40 feet long, and then how many feet from from the setback line, the bold black line, to the edge of the structure. I know it's not a straight line, but what is that?
So if you look at the, would that be the west side or the, the left side, it's about 9 feet. When you get down to the garage area, it's probably a foot.
Okay, so if we look at the existing conditions and we were to do the math, based on the information we've been given, that structure as it stands today, if you were to do the math of that, we'd come to 396 square feet that's in the setback. And now with the addition of the garage and the proposed structure as depicted, you'll end up at 420 square feet of total encroachment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And during the course of this, when he builds a new house, it is not going to be in the side setback as the present house is.
Right.
So it's almost moving it over.
Right. Is there any way to take it, to reduce or take any of it out of the right-of-way encroachment?
Other than narrowing the house.
Okay, I see. You couldn't move the structure.
No, because if you move the structure towards the lake, then you're
Increasing encroachment on the lake setback.
On the lake side.
Yeah.
In January, the 50-foot setback was not an issue.
Right.
Because
Right.
that's when they did their lot line adjustment, which brought into play.
Well, that's the reason,
50-foot setback.
that's one of the reasons I'm asking that, because, if he moved the structure and was still within the 30-foot setback, then I almost feel that would be an easier variance, because the only reason he's subject to a 50-foot setback is because he did a boundary line adjustment to approve the overall use and function of that lot or whatever. So otherwise, that structure was always governed by the 30-foot lake setback, and he created a new lot which was beneficial, and then got penalized in a way with a 50-foot setback. And so I guess the question is whether that would be an easier variance. But on the other hand, it's nice to keep things off the lake.
And the other part of that is the state's 50-foot setback. They don't want you moving closer.
Well, no, that's true. Right. And as between the two setbacks, a right-of-way versus a lake setback, it's a lesser impact probably in the, there's no potential harm to the lake by keeping it back. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I've had some discussion with Darlene Force, and my attorney did as well. And this is what we're looking at here for proposed in terms of encroachment into the 50-foot setback is what she said would most likely get approved from the state. Yeah. I tried to push it forward. I even wanted to try and center it on the house so that it looks better, but there's no legal precedence for her to approve that, so it has to stay where it is, the existing footprint. Once if change that existing footprint, I got to move everything beyond the 50-foot setback.
You're better off fighting with us than Darlene anyway, I can tell you that.
So, John, have you done the calculations? Because, maybe my eyes are deceiving me, but it's 396 that is being encroached existing, and he's only going 420 to 420. Am I getting that right?
That was the math that was presented. I haven't scaled.
Yeah, a difference of 24 square feet.
There's only a difference of 24 square feet. When I look at the plans, it just looks like it's more. It looks like it's more, and maybe I'm just looking at it wrong, but it looks like it's more. And it may be that the existing house is larger than the existing house, minus the garage. You know, I'm sorry, the existing house is larger than the proposed house, okay? Less the garage.
Yeah, existing house is 44 wide, the new house is 40.
40.
So,
Okay.
so it
Yeah,
might
I got it.
look a little deceiving there, but there is 4 feet.
I got it, Rob.
Okay.
To be honest, it's just a little deceiving, that's all. I just want to make sure. Okay, so I'm comfortable with it, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Rob, can you speak to this proposed parking area? Is that encroaching in the wetlands? Did you mention that?
Yeah. Yeah, so this was additional parking that we're proposing to build as part of this project. So the justification that was requested is you have parking in the garage, you have parking in 2 cars in the driveway. Why do you need 2 more? So the garage is going to be primarily used to hold equipment and it's for storage basically. We're not intending to park in there. So that would limit us to 2 parking spaces. And then additionally, it would having that area would allow us to, swing things in and out of there easier from a swing radius perspective, without having to drive on our neighbor's property.
Can I elaborate on that? Mr. Broughton, that proposed parking area, is that going to be also proposed as a pervious surface?
Yes. Yes, pervious. Yep.
They would make them do it. DES would make them do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. That was part of our response to the request for more information, that we would build that with pervious material.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hmm. Interesting.
And if you notice, it impacts poorly drained soil only. It doesn't impact a very poorly drained, which we thought might be another reason why they would potentially approve it.
Jeez, look at these setbacks. That goes all the way to the 150-foot setback line. Small lots.
The stores are very small.
Tight lots, boy.
Very tight.
No, down where it slopes down fairly steeply to it. But then, you know Sharon Anderson?
Yes.
The realtor? Yeah. He's next door. So it's all fairly wall, where those houses are. So.
Oh, okay, so this big house is Sharon Anderson's house?
If you're looking down.
Right.
To the left.
Oh, to the left?
Yeah.
Okay.
The one to the right is Mr. Stevens.
That's Mr. Stevens? Okay. Okay, all right, cool. Okay.
Okay, any other questions or discussion from the board?
Square footage in this line?
It's just over 16,000 square feet.
You're fitting in a ton of stuff there, Mr.
I know.
Hey, okay, I'm okay, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Paul, you good? You need some time?
There's a photograph of a architectural design that you're thinking about using, but, so this looks like a 3-story structure. You've already said you're not going to increase the number of bedrooms. They're going to remain at 3. And, but what's the total increase of square footage in total between the current structure and the proposed structure that you anticipate?
That is tough to answer because I don't have the architectural drawings done.
Right. Are you going to do 3 stories, like a walkout and then 2 above, or like the photograph?
Yeah, like the photograph. Potentially, it would be walkout with a raised level and then potentially a loft above that.
Okay. And you'll be obviously within the height restrictions or requirements of the zoning ordinance?
Yes, so we work with my architect to make sure that we're within, it's 35 feet, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And you're going to stay within the building envelope?
Yes.
Other than what we're, what
Other
you're requesting?
yes. Of course, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
I believe you said this was just what it was going to look like, Paul.
Right.
Okay, it wasn't gonna be probably as big as this.
As the photograph.
As the photograph.
Right, you know, elaborate on that a little bit more, it's just, and there's no abutters, that would obstruct their views with the new height?
No, there shouldn't be. There's, I mean, it's wetland behind us. And we're all kind of on the shorefront.
It's all behind it.
It is, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
On, that slopes up to Sawmill Brook Road. And there's only one house on the opposite side of Sawmill Brook Road, and it is actually further down Sawmill Brook Road from the entrance to Sand.
Yeah, it's an extensive amount of wetlands.
It wouldn't impact any view.
From either abutter on either side.
On either side, and, yeah,
Nothing.
it's back on that little
Yeah,
section.
this one's everything. I wasn't sure about this one over here.
Cool.
All right, okay.
You good? All right. All right, at this point in time, I'll open the hearing to any public input in favor of the special exception for KZ 21-15. Any public input in favor? Okay, any public input against the special exception for the KZ 21-15? And the response is none. Okay, none for or against. At this point, I'll close the hearing. Mr. Broughton, any further questions or discussions from your behalf before we go into our worksheet?
No, sir.
Okay, Ford, everybody satisfied?
I'd like to have just a small perspective. If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, because there are going to be a number of conditions, depending on how we vote. And I would just like to go over what you think those conditions would be. Certainly the New Hampshire DES approvals, right? As Mr. Manzioni mentioned, something to the effect of a right-of-way being addressed in terms of it never being more than 9 feet of encroachment. I guess that's how we would want to word it, or something like that.
The right-of-way being changed such that the encroachment into the right-of-way setback does not change.
And is there anything else that we would want as a condition I think those were the two main items. I certainly want to get that on the table, and if there's any additional discussion, okay, so that we have it on the record that we talked about it, and just in case we forgot something. That sound appropriate?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure we put all our ducks together, Mr. Gordon, so that, if we approve it, you never have to worry about being challenged, that we didn't discuss these things. If we have it on record, we can always go back to the record and say, we did discuss that, and we made comment of it. We try to be as thorough as we can. Sometimes it sounds like we're being nitpicky, but, you know, in this day and age, we're just trying to make sure you get the protection that you're entitled to, okay? If you got to approve these, the special exception and the variance, okay? Thanks.
Okay. Everybody else? All right, at this point, we will move to the special exception worksheet, the Z21-15. And if we could start at that point.
A plat has been submitted in accordance with the appropriate criteria in Article 500, Section 520B. Yes.
I agree, Frank Rich.
I agree, Tom Lee.
I agree, Paul Montioni.
I agree, Mike Hepworth.
The specific site is the appropriate location for the use. The applicant has gone to great degrees to work on a very, very small site to get what he's trying to propose, including DES approval and parking areas, moving a road. So I believe it's an appropriate, he's gone to great length for an appropriately good location for the use, and it's a residential area.
For those reasons, I agree, Tom Lee.
Paul Montioni, I agree the site is appropriate for the use, since the use is not changing, it's residential.
Mike Hepworth, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree for the same reasons.
Okay, in regards to value, factual evidence is not found that the property value in the district will be reduced due to incompatible land uses. If anything, the value of the property value will increase with the improvement in the tentative proposed structure that he's looking to put forth on this property.
Paul Montioni, I agree. Factual evidence is not found that the property value will be reduced due to incompatible land use, since the use is compatible.
Mike Hepworth, I agree, as stated.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree as well.
I agree for all the same reasons. Thank you.
Paul Montioni, there is no valid objection from abutters based on demonstrable fact. No abutters have come and provided any information or provided testimony.
Mike Hepworth, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree for the same reasons.
The same reasons, Frank Rich, I agree.
Tom Lee, I agree. Okay, Mike, I will read your statement. Mr. Broughton, just so you know, we have one member on Zoom, so I'll read. He doesn't have a worksheet from him. I'll read the worksheet, and he can make his comments on it. And the criteria is regards nuisance. There is or there is no undue nuisance or serious hazard to pedestrian or vehicular traffic, including the location and design of access ways and off-street parking.
I believe that to make sure there will be no nuisance. So there is no nuisance to the area.
I agree, Paul LaRochelle.
I agree, Frank Richard. There is no undue notice, as Mike and Paul have agreed.
Tom Lee, I agree.
Paul Montioni, I agree that on the condition that to the extent that the use of the property is going to include parking, and that requires any DES approvals, I would agree, conditioned on that.
Adequate and appropriate facilities and utilities will be provided to ensure the proper operation of the proposed use of structure. This is going to be a new modern home with new power, new, all built to code with a new septic system design.
For all those reasons, I agree. Frank Rich, I'm sorry.
I agree, Tom Lynch.
Paul Montioni, I agree, again, conditioned on if any DES approvals are required.
I agree, Mike Hepworth.
Sewage. There is adequate area for safe and sanitary sewage disposal and water supply. The applicant has applied for the DES for a very new and sophisticated sewer system. Provided that DES approval is made, I agree that there will be safe and sanitary sewage disposal and water supply.
I agree, Tom Lynch.
I agree on that same condition.
Hepworth, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree.
Okay, in regards to intent, the proposed use or structure is consistent with the spirit of this ordinance and the intent of the master plan.
Paul Montioni, I agree.
Mike Hepworth, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree.
Frank Rich, I agree. Mr.
Okay.
Paul, what if you?
Okay, yes, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we grant the application for special exception for case number Z21-15 on the following conditions: that the applicant obtain all of the necessary approvals from the state of New Hampshire, including any approvals from the New Hampshire DES, and also on the specific condition that, as represented by the applicant, the right-of-way that is the subject of the encroachment be properly and lawfully changed such that the amount of encroachment stays the same as what it is now after the change.
I'll second the motion. Paul LaRochelle.
Okay, all in favor?
Frank Rich, aye.
Tom Lee, aye.
Paul Montioni, aye.
Mike Hepworth, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Okay. As far as case Z21-15 special exception has been unanimously approved, we will then go forward to case 21-16, Robert Tanner Broughton, owners, and Peace Lane, map 41, lot 51, for a variance in relation to vegetarian compliance. A variance is requested in Article 300, Section 320J, 3 and 4 of the zoning ordinance to permit the expansion of a replaced non-conforming structure, 25-foot right-of-way setback.
Amelia, do you have any idea where that background noise is coming from?
Yeah, if somebody maybe called in and they don't have their phone on mute, could you get background noise?
Okay, all right. Well, that's fine, but if anybody's called in and does not have their phone on mute, please do so now. It's interrupting the recording of this. Thank you.
Okay, we have already approved the application for Z21-16. I'll turn it to you, Rob, if there's anything further you'd like to discuss, notably in regards to case Z21-16, in regards to this variance request?
No, nothing else. Thank you.
Any further discussion from the board? I think we're covered. All right, I'll then open the hearing for public input in favor of Z2116. Any public input in favor? And the response is none. And any public input against this variance request for Z21-16? And there is no response. At this point, I'll close the hearing for public input. If we have no further discussion, we've gone over this case pretty detailed. We'll come to the variance for Z21-16. Frank, could you start us off?
Public interest. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest. There's been no evidence whatsoever that the public will, that this would be contrary to any interest in the public. Will only enhance the area and the improvements, certainly in the septic area, close to those lakeshore area is a plus, and one of the variance lines removed one of the setbacks, as far as I can recall.
Palmley, I agree.
Paul Montioni, I agree that the variance will not be contrary to the public interest.
Mike Hepworth, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree as well.
Turn the light on.
Okay, in regards to the spirit of the ordinance, the request is in harmony with the spirit of the zoning ordinance, the intent of the master plan, and with the convenience, health, safety, and character of the district within which it is proposed. I believe based on the plans that have been laid out in front of us, this request is definitely in harmony with the spirit of the zoning ordinance and the intent of the master plan.
Paul Montioni, I agree that it is in harmony.
Mike Hepworth, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree as well. I believe it is in harmony with the master plan.
For all the same reasons, I agree.
By granting the variance, substantial justice will be done. This is a situation where a non-conforming structure is being replaced, which is encouraged. It's being done in compliance with the ordinance that deals with, that permits this to happen. Other aspects of encroachment are being removed. Septic is being improved. And the applicant found himself in a situation of a larger setback on the lake because of a boundary line adjustment that was obtained. So for all of those reasons, substantial justice will be done.
For the reasons stated by Mr. Montioni, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree.
Frank Rich, I agree.
Palmley, I agree. I'll now go to you, Mike. The criteria is values of surrounding properties. This request will or will not diminish the value of the surrounding properties.
I don't think there's any evidence that it'll do any harm. In fact, on the contrary, it'll probably help the surrounding properties. So, no, it will not diminish the surrounding area property values.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree. I do not believe it will diminish the value of surrounding properties.
I agree, Frank Rich.
I agree, Palmley.
I agree, Paul Montioni.
For the purposes of this subparagraph, unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, no fair, substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of the provision, of that provision to the property. Yes. And the proposed use is a reasonable one, yes. Due to the small size, lot, the wetlands of the area, limited space, and the 25-foot setback requirement, I believe this is a reasonable proposed use.
I agree for those reasons. And the applicant has gone out of his way to increase the sanitary and the safety of the community around him. And there's definitely a hardship there. It's a very small lot, and the proposed use is an absolute.
I agree, Tom Lee.
Paul Montioni, I agree. There's no detriment to the public, and there would be hardship to the applicant to strictly apply this. And I would say also, I agree, the use is reasonable because it's a residential use, and that's not changing.
I agree also.
Okay.
So I would, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we grant application Z21-16, and that it be granted subject to the same conditions as previously stated. I'll reiterate them for this record as best I can, which is on the condition that the applicant obtain all appropriate approvals from the state of New Hampshire, including any required approvals from the New Hampshire DES, and that also the right-of-way is changed such that the encroachment into the right-of-way after the project would be the same as it currently exists.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Montioni, aye.
Mike Hepworth, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Tom Lee, aye. Mr. Broughton, that concludes your two cases. C21-15 for your special exception was unanimously approved, and case Z21-16 for the variance was approved. On behalf of the board, just want to thank you for all your due diligence, the plans, and your commentary. Helps us greatly. We're trying to work with the applicants here to get to their end point. So thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. Thank you for your time and effort. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening.
Okay.
All right, at this point, we will go on to other business. And is there any previous business?
No previous business.
No previous business.
What? What? Go ahead.
And how about new business?
Once again, I'm disappointed.
Is there something you want to bring up?
Yeah, John, do we need to address last month's meeting in terms of the mistake that we made?
Well, the issue has been, the septic plan has been approved. So your concern was that there was a septic plan approved.
Yes.
So that was done, and they have begun reconstructing the house.
Okay.
So in essence, the timing may be a little bit off, but everything is done.
But where we erred, just so that we know for the next time, or something like this comes up, you're not around, because they already had a septic system in place, she didn't really need a septic system on a condition of a septic system, because she had it in place.
Right.
She already had one.
And she was not increasing the number of bedrooms
Right.
from existing.
Paul, you weren't here.
I take one night off and the whole thing falls apart.
Well, that's kind of how I felt.
What also she had mentioned, and it's probably should be in the minutes, she had mentioned the question was asked about the septic system, and she made a comment off the record, I wouldn't use it. She said that about the current septic system, and hence why I think this came up.
Yeah, and
And I do believe the septic system was actually on another person's
Yes,
property.
I mean, we got things all over the place. But, where were you when we needed you?
I think they set us up. I think they set us up. There's something going on there.
There was something, they called each other earlier.
I called John and said, let's watch them do this.
Oh, man.
We were also the ones making all the noise on the phone, too.
That's all we have for other business, if there any, or previous business.
Yeah, new business, talking about meeting policies.
Yes, meetings, well, it appears the meetings will be the next meeting will be transitioned back to in-person meetings.
So I don't have to read that thing for a half hour.
Alrighty.
Thank God.
We'll probably still offer the option of someone trying to Zoom in, perhaps who's, not local or whatever. But that cannot be the way. This is all portended on the governor not extending the state of emergency.
Right.
Presently, on the 12th of June, we're done with the state of emergency unless he extends it. Apparently, the New Hampshire Municipal Association is not anticipating that to happen, and so that's why they sent out guidance to us just today or yesterday, saying that if the state of emergency expires, then all the provisions for doing it remotely and everything else only expire. So we will have to go back to in-person meetings. So,
Okay, so could we still have a member?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
for that reason, could we, Amelia or John, could we send the worksheets out in an email, just so people have them?
Yeah.
Okay, because like on Mike's case today, he could just look at a blank copy. Doesn't have to necessarily be, just, he could certainly get a hard copy and keep it at home, or any of us could, but makes it easier.
I just want to write it in Dropbox.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
there you go.
That's the easiest thing. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, my knowledge is the next selectmen's meeting will be in attendance upstairs.
Yeah.
And also available for, Zoom.
Yeah. I think so, as long as it's this is scheduling that.
Yeah, I know.
So that is the biggest single thing at the moment, is just that we will be returning, we anticipate returning.
Great.
If it changes, we'll let you know, but we anticipate returning to a reasonably normal schedule.
So the next meeting is July 4th, is that correct?
No, it's July 1st. If you want to be here, you're more than welcome. So, our next meeting is July 1st.
We had mentioned it quite a bit in the last selectmen meeting, is to hopefully go back to business as usual.
Yes.
And I'm glad to hear that.
Do you anticipate any of the, we've had a number of commercial applications that were set aside, or do you anticipate any commercial applications coming back to the board?
Yes. Specifically the Rand Hill property.
The which one?
The Rand Hill property.
Rand Hill? Okay.
So that will be back to, I don't know that it will be back to us in July, but it will be coming back.
But it will be coming
And
back.
one off of, that's coming back as
Yes,
well.
it will be.
Okay, interesting.
Great.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll get into the approval of minutes.
Minutes. Oh.
How's that sound?
I'm not doing it. And by the way, I'm gonna
You can handle the correspondence.
I'm gonna send you a letter
That'd be very.
between now and the next meeting, and the letter's gonna request that this be brought up at the next meeting, so that there will be correspondence. I want you to know that.
I've already given you
Come from me. Dear John, please bring this letter up at the next meeting under the correspondence section.
Yeah.
I think a couple
What
of
minutes
left out.
are we approving?
I think everything looked
Last-
okay. Last meeting. There was a
Yeah,
few,
last meeting.
I wasn't here.
on it, but just a few comments that were made. I know that you made that aren't on here, but I think for the most part, it's good.
I can reach out to Jennifer and let her know, maybe a little bit more information.
Yeah, just a little bit, sometimes a little bit more detail. Other than that, I think it was good.
Yeah, I went through it. I didn't see anything grammatically wrong or anything misquoted to anybody.
I always like Tim Morgan to be here because he dots the i's, crosses the t's.
Great.
There should be
There
a
was a
comma.
missing dot,
Right.
and
Oh, yeah.
comma, you know.
I don't know.
I mean, I wasn't very good at that kind of stuff, you know, but, it looked okay to me, Mr.
So
Chairman.
could we get a
Make
motion to?
to approve the minutes from April 1st, 2021.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Paul Rochelle, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Tom Lee, aye.
Paul Manzioni abstained.
Yeah, Mike Hepworth, aye.
Okay.
And correspondence.
No correspondence.
Nothing.
Mr.
One thing that I can say as far as.
We have a correspondence.
Okay.
That's why I get up, that's why I come here, I get up early and come here.
No, just to mention that the master plan committee met,
last night. And, as you know, that we have, picked, a master plan person, which is, Tara Bamford, which you were on the board, and the selectmen approved, her contract. And, so she came to the first meeting as of last night in discussion on what the next steps are. And, she's gonna do a self-guided tour of the town, and she's gonna check out all the areas of importance and everything that on the list that we gave of everything in the town. And, the whole area, the map out, she's gonna go on her own and go through the whole town. She's coming up with, she came up with a postcard that's gonna be sent out that everybody can review and look at, a survey that everyone, will be getting and looking at the survey and hoping to reach out to a lot of the people in the community, businesses, and people to get people to fill out and to get involved. Basically, and get it. So if anybody, knows of any other people that are not familiar with, the master plan and what we're trying to get as much input and information as we can from everyone. And that means all the local businesses, people that are vacationers, people that are permanent residents, and so on and so forth, people in the school systems, and get as much information as we can get back once we have the postcard go out and the questionnaires. That'll be coming up, and it'll be announced, it'll be in the papers, it'll be in the Facebook. So Jessica and Amelia have been working very, very hard on this and doing very well, and the committee is doing well with it. So it's at its beginning stages, but I think Tara's going to be a good fit. You were part of the interview, and I know she's very good, very knowledgeable, and I think it can really do well if everyone participates and actually fills out the information and move forward with it.
That's terrific.
And so that's what I have for now, but so look in the future there will be a postcard being mailed out to residents and landowners, and the survey will be going out. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one thing I would, I'm on the committee for tiny homes, and we're trying to put our arms together in terms of coming up with some input to the zoning group, okay, for tiny homes, mobile tiny homes that are actually stationary tiny homes, cabin colonies, and trying to get our arms around. We've got an awful lot of information coming from different associations, different towns, and what they've put together for this kind of stuff to start to work on developing criteria. And John's been very helpful in guiding us with where we think we could place some of this structure into, because there's no question that tiny homes are coming and clustering them, and you know, and there's a lot going on there in terms of affordability, and how do we take the land spaces of rural areas and still keep it into the context of the town itself, you know?
What we discussed briefly, or what we're aiming towards, call it open space subdivision type, where there's a large lot, but the houses are clustered in a certain area, and the left is left green.
Still not,
Which can be very advantageous to everybody involved.
still not jeopardizing the 2 acres per unit.
Right.
But at the same time clustering them for infrastructure costs and, you know, roadways and sewer and water and things of that nature, you know. So it was, so far it's been very interesting, and it's been a good group.
Yeah, I just missed the last one. We only had 2 meetings so far.
We've had 2 meetings
missed
so
that
far,
last one.
right. But it's coming along, and it's in its discovery stage. I mean, we're nowhere near where we need to be, but we don't want to be sitting in the background. We want to get ahead of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of research, and how other states and other towns are handling it, and what they're doing.
And,
it together.
and we were even with the other thing is the impact of, school and police and fire.
Sure.
And, what would the impact be?
Right.
So limitations and things of that nature.
Right.
Because, can you just imagine an incredible influx of students
Yeah.
into our system?
Right.
Whew, man.
Right.
That could be
A lot of factors.
devastating.
A lot of factors.
Yeah, there's just an awful lot of factors. So we're even talking about seasonal use.
Yeah.
And it was brought up a couple of times that our seasonal use has changed because there's so much winter seasonal use.
That's right.
Versus,
Things have changed.
Right.
in terms of, it used to be just a summer resort. It's not that any longer.
Right.
There's a lot of winter
Yeah, but
activities now.
you could say you had to be you can't be a permanent resident of the town, so your kids aren't eligible to go to school here, you're not eligible to register to vote, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You'd have to-
those
they'd
kinds
have
of
to-
things.
Yeah, I mean, you can use it for skiing or for swimming, but it's a seasonal, it's a vacation type of residence.
Recreational.
It's a recreational
Yeah,
residence,
right.
it's not a.
So there was a lot of discussion over that. And we're trying to get our arms around it,
Yeah.
That's
I
why
know.
good people, involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the board.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, Marcella, Johnson, anyway, she wants to be on the master plan committee and, as a public member now, because it's so late to join it, but when I first joined the CBA, she was on the CBA, her husband was the fire chief. You know who I'm talking about? I used to call her, I think.
What's her last name?
She's an older woman.
Marcy Perry. Was it Marcy Perry?
What was the chief's last name? He died, he got pneumonia, he got in.
Russ Jones. Yeah, Russ Jones. That's the one before it stopped.
No, this is a long time ago now, when I first joined this, but she was here.
Paul, Amelia, or.
Okay, yeah, I saw her in Ackerley's, and she said she missed it, she wanted to get back involved. And I said, go on the master plan committee.
Sure.
She's great, she chaired this, and she sat on it for years, and, she worked hard, and, but God, that's a long time ago. But she misses it, and I said, you could go on the master.
Would be great.
As a citizen, as
Yeah. She
I'll tell
contacted
you.
Amelia and Jessica, that'd be great.
Anyway, I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Frank, good guy.
Mike, good job.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
See you later.
See you, Mike. See you soon.
See you, Mike.
Have a
See you,
good
Mike.
night. I'll be up there in a week or two.
Bye, Mike.
See you, Mike.
Take care,
Thank you,
Paul.
Mike.
All right, thank you.